Listen up. We are back. Another episode of the Construction Mentor Podcast. My name is Ike. I am your host. You can find me on all major platforms at the Construction Mentor. If you type in anything about construction and mentor, I should pop up at this point. Why are we on all major platforms? Because we want to make sure that we spread the message. And what is the message? The message is that the construction industry is the place to be. No better opportunity for a life of affluency, no matter what your life looks like, how you grew up, what means you have, whether you want to go to college, not go to college. There's plenty of opportunity for everybody, and there's plenty of opportunity to make a lot of money. And if you're already in the industry, you want to make sure that you have mentorship, that you're aware of the other opportunities out there, how to take it to the next level, and where and how to find those tools. So today, interview format keeps rolling. We've got Cody Hansen from Idaho. We're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about, Cody? We're going to talk about digging some holes and how you got into doing that and how you wound up from California going to Idaho.
Yep.
So Cody, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Happy Friday. We're recording this on a Friday. I'm not sure when this is going to release. But it's good. It's a good day. It's good to be a Friday, and it's good to be at the end of the year because people are starting to calm down, which is great.
Yes.
So Cody, tell me a little bit about what you're doing out in Idaho, what your trade is, and exactly what your role is.
I'm in excavation. I actually started my own company like 6 or 7 months ago. We do civil work, residential work. We have another company under our umbrella that does the vertical work, custom homes, remodel, stuff like that. I'm also working for another company that we team up with and do some work for. I help them out with estimating and stuff. So I'm kind of all over the place. And I have a media company on top of that. So I'm working 7 days a week. Yeah, so I got a lot going on. I'm like all over the place.
So let's take a backtrack here. Let's just go one by one. So excavating, which is a nice word for digging holes, right? But with heavy equipment, moving around dirt, developing job sites, things like that. And then you said vertical, which would be, are you general contracting structures, commercial and residential?
Yes.
Wow.
Just
okay.
Right now it's residential. Commercial will probably grow into later on down the road.
Got it. Okay. And then media company, was that the third one or was there another one in there?
Media company, and then estimating for another outfit right here in the Treasure Valley too. So,
and that what kind of estimating is that? Is that just general estimating or a niche?
They're an excavation and grading company as well. So I jump in there a few days a week and help them get some jobs out the door. So they're a company that's been in the valley for like 40 years, I think. Tristan Spires, he's the owner operator. He took it over for his dad, and so he gave me a call. I do content work for him. That's how our relationship started. And then he was like, "Hey, why don't you jump in here and help me with some estimating while you're building your company?"
So why help somebody that seems like a competitor, number one, with their content, and number two, to actually perform work for them or to estimate work for them to win?
That's a good question. Well, we do work together. So they are a smaller outfit. And Tristan kind of approached us and was like, "Hey, I want to start GCing projects." And he said, "You and your business partner have that experience. Why don't we bid projects together? You could come in, do a little overhead supervision for us, and do all the legwork in the background, and then we could just do the work." So that's kind of where our relationship stands right now. And as far as competing, like there's a line in the sand with us. Like he has his GCs that they worked for forever, and we will not bid for those GCs. We have competed on a couple projects together, just 4 different GCs. And, at the end of the day, neither of us ended up winning, but that's kind of the line we drew in the sand with each other. Was like, "Hey, you have your guys, I have my guys. We don't bid to the same GCs." And I think it's worked out. Pretty well. And Tristan's a smart guy, so he saw an opportunity to team up with a couple dudes, and I don't know. It's been awesome so far.
So you're 35 years old. You've got 4 different business ventures.
Yeah.
What's the most lucrative one?
Definitely excavation.
Excavation. That's your main dig, literally.
Yeah, that's like my main focus. I mean, the vertical side, I'm not that deep into it. On the vertical side, I'll help out with some estimating and stuff, but really, that's that's my wife and my partner's wife deal. They're dealing with the clients. They're doing the whole nine over there. So, but yeah.
So you're more operation. So do you have your own staff and equipment?
We have some equipment. Right now it's just me and my partner. We're currently building the civil side. We're hoping by next summer we'll get some guys on board. We have guys that work for us at past companies that are, they're just waiting for the phone call to come over. So our pipeline's filling up, and we are doing jobs currently, and we have done a handful of jobs, but right now we're focusing on getting that pipeline filled for next year. We're also a veteran-owned company, so we're hopefully by next year, once our SDVBO gets all figured out, we'll be chasing some work out of state too, because the set aside money for that is insane. So there's going to be a lot of good opportunity there.
So who's the veteran? Is that you?
We're both veterans.
You're both veterans. Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
What branch?
We're both in the Army.
Both in the Army, and that game's coming up, right?
Yeah.
I think that's coming up this weekend.
Go Army.
Go Army. They definitely have the better uniforms. Not that really matters, but so that's incredible. So you've got a ton going on, a lot to handle as a 35-year-old. How many projects would you say you have, and would you mind me asking, like, what the overall revenue you're looking at for the excavation part of the outfit? And I'd be curious to hear, do you get any bid opportunities because you're veteran owned? And maybe, because that qualifies as like a MWDBE contractor, right? So
yeah,
any kind of public work or anything like that, or any kind of private clients that are looking to fill those holes?
Right now we're still in the early stages, and not a lot of people know who we are, so we're still networking. There is a project for the VA here in Boise that just came across the desk the other day, so we're going to look at diving into that. As far as revenue, right now it's just so hit or miss, and we're still in the growing phases, but our goal is to get 6 to 8 million a year.
Well, and you just started this year, right? You're only a couple months into the endeavor, so I guess that was a question that was probably a little early, right? Now,
we made good money so far this year. We've had a couple projects that we hit it out of the park on and did pretty good job estimating them and finished them ahead of schedule. So we're doing pretty good so far.
Awesome. So 4 companies. Did you start all of them at the same time 8 months ago, or was were a few of these side gigs and then you jumped into the main? You took the leap.
So the media company I started like a little over a year ago.
And that was based on what your passion for generating content, and you saw that there's other guys out there that couldn't do it themselves.
Yeah, I was working at a company with my best friend, and we had a kick-ass crew, and Build Wit, all those guys. I'm sure you've seen them on Instagram. Those dudes inspired me to start making content, so I started bringing my camera to work, and then I grinded out on it, and then just opportunity after another started to come about, and I was like, you know what, I need to just start a company and start doing this legit. And now I have several clients on monthly retainers doing that. But yeah, that's been going on for a little over a year now, and it's growing pretty quick.
So I want to take a step back to the beginning, because I want to find out how you got to the point where you became a media expert, or not an expert, but somebody that could deliver a value that other people can't. And what gave you the confidence to take this leap into all these different business ventures? And I think the answer is going to be education. It's going to be experience. So I'd like to find out what that experience was. So let's walk it back to the beginning. High school, what was Cody like? Was that in California? Were you looking at college? Was college never the option? It was always the trades. What was life like for you then?
Yeah, so growing up in California, my whole family was in the trades. They're all carpenters. My dad had a really successful career with a good outfit there on the Central Coast. I don't know if you know where Carmel Valley is.
Sure.
So I didn't want to go to college. I hated school. I loved sports. I played football and lacrosse, and I loved it. And honestly, that was the only reason I kept my grades up, was just to play those sports. But
to not get kicked off the team.
Exactly. But after high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I worked for my dad's in the summer and I hated carpentry. I sucked at it. I just didn't have interest in it. So I joined the army, went and did that, came home, ended up going back to work for my dad. We flipped houses for a couple years and just, did remodels and whatnot. I ended up moving back home. I was living in Northern California at the time, working for my dad. I moved back home to the Central Coast. And I was out of work for a little bit when I first got there. Ended up running into a good friend of mine, and he had an excavation company going at the time. So I jumped in with them, started as a laborer, and worked my way up over the last like 13, 14 years. I've been doing it now.
So you mentioned you got some exposure to carpentry because that's what your family did, and
right.
You hated it. What was it about carpentry that you hated?
It's kind of boring. It's just not for me. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, there's like my dad loves it. I know guys that still do it and they love it.
Are we talking like rough, like framing and drywall, or are we talking like finished cabinetry or all of the above?
Oh, everything. Framing,
Everything.
finish, painting. Like me and my dad would do everything. We would sheetrock it, paint it, texture it, like all that, hang the cabinets. And I liked framing. Framing is pretty cool. Just roughing and framing because you're jamming. But I didn't have the patience for finish work. You get a nice painted wall and you put your dirty hand on it and it leaves a smudge, and then it's just I was too much of a gorilla to be in there doing finish work. Not my thing.
I gotta be honest with you, I'm the same way. Like I can't tape a wall. I can't do any kind of a finish, anything. I have no finesse. I am all bull. Like ask me to like lift up that pile of rocks and bring it over there. Like I'll do it faster with a smile on my face, faster than anybody. But when it comes to that stuff that requires like precision and patience, it's just not me.
No, for sure. The other thing too that why I was so attracted to dirt work was, when I was younger, obviously I was the grunt, right? So we'd get a load of doors, right? And we have to move the doors across the job 5 or 6 times to move them. And I was just like, man, I'm spending all day just moving shit around, lifting heavy shit. And then when it came to running equipment, it was like, okay, now I get to sit down and move dirt. And I'm in a machine that's moving this stuff for me. I mean, obviously dirt work, there's a lot of labor that comes into it. So I didn't get off that easy, but it's just, I don't know. I just thought it was so cool moving dirt. I mean, it's a glorious trade. It's badass. I mean, dirt's flying around, trucks, excavators, dozers, like you really can't beat it in my opinion.
Yeah. And you got sometimes, the machine can only take you so far, and then you got to get your hands in there and you got to, dig something out or something like that. But, I think for the most part, that's the appeal for a lot of people. It's the exposure to the big equipment and the environment and be able to operate heavy machinery and stuff like that and change a landscape, which I think is super cool. So you went in the Army, and what was your job in the Army before you came out and went to moving dirt?
I was an engineer. So I went to basic and AIT in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which is really cold and miserable. Not the best place in the world. But yeah, so I got some exposure to equipment there and kind of got the basics down. And getting that exposure, I kind of felt like, I knew how to run equipment. And then, once I actually went to work for somebody running equipment, I got humbled really quick and realized that I didn't know shit. And it takes a long time to learn it.
So talk to me about that. So there's a lot of young people out there that could use some humbling. We need more people in the trades first, right? But even the ones that do show up, and even if more show up, more will need humbling because we all need it when we're young. So what advice would you give to somebody that's young, they're thinking about coming in the industry, regardless of where they are, in their perspective, what they know versus what they don't know, they don't know?
Honestly, just shut the fuck up and listen. Like, don't talk, just listen. Like, I don't like, my biggest thing is when I try to teach something to a younger guy and they tell me that they just say, I know. Well, it's like, if you know, then I'm not going to fucking tell you anything and you're not going to learn anything. So just shut up and pay attention. My biggest thing, I say this all the time. I'm convinced that I learned from the best to do it. I really do. I mean, there's the dudes that I came up with are studs. I mean, just absolute animals on machines. So what I did, and I honestly, like, to backtrack a little bit, I was that guy too. I had to get humbled. There was a point where I thought I knew everything, and I got my ass handed to me. But working for those guys, I just watched. I just watched everything they did and asked questions. You know, you have to ask questions because a lot of the time, like, most guys want to teach you, because if they teach you and you listen and you do what they say, it just makes their life easier, right? So I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, is just shut up and listen to what I have to tell
So
you.
it's so funny because you're the second person in the last 2 or 3 episodes that said that. Like, stop telling me you know when I know you don't know, and you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's either because you're being ignorant, you're being cocky, or you don't want to admit it to somebody because you don't want to sound stupid. None of those are good reasons to do it. Right. So ask questions, pay attention. That's like the common denominator for everybody. And what's funny is I have so many people in my comment section that complain about, oh, the old guys don't want to teach and yada yada, and it's a terrible culture and whatever. My knee-jerk reaction is there's like a 95% chance that you're not giving them the perception that you're worth teaching.
Exactly. And honestly, from my point of view, teaching is my favorite thing. I love teaching younger guys that are receptive, guys that want to learn, right? Like, there's a lot of dudes out there, like I said, that just, they think they know everything. Well, I'm not going to give you the time of day, but there's been a handful of guys over the years that I've taught a bunch of shit, and those dudes are killing it now. They're killing it. Like, awesome blade hands, awesome excavator hands, awesome just all around dudes that are tearing it up. So yeah, no, trust me, like, we want to teach you, like, because if you know, then it's gonna make our jobs a lot easier.
So walk me through, you get out of the army, you end up going to the civil world, right, as a laborer. Describe to me, first of all, what the pay was like, what types of things you were doing, and what projects you were working on when you first got your exposure to excavating and moving dirt.
The pay at that time, I want to say I was making around $25 an hour, which isn't bad for, I don't know, I think I was like 21.
Well, not only that, but what were you doing? What is $25 an hour for somebody with no experience on an excavation crew? What do they do?
Check and grade and using a shovel. I don't know. I feel like I picked it up really easy. Like, I was pretty natural at it. So I was running skid steers and stuff and just kind of packing dirt around the job in the beginning. But yeah, just checking grade and putting paint on the ground, and spotting the guy in the digger and all that good stuff. So really grunt work.
What do you mean by checking a grade? What's a grade, and why do you need paint and dirt?
Grade, basically, achieving grade is achieving the desired elevation that you want, right? We'll have like a linker rod with a grade eye on it for the laser, and so check and grade and hop around, and if there's a tenth of cut, then I'll throw a dot on the ground for a tenth of cut. Spotting guys, digging underground, right? We're digging around utilities a lot of the time, gas lines and fiber optic and stuff. So that was my job, to kind of guide the guy on the excavator, and or potholing, right? Yeah, I think there's something here, looks like an old trench. Jump in there with a shovel, pothole it, pothole down a foot or whatever, and just check it out for him. So mostly stuff like that.
Yeah, so he's outside, he's digging with a shovel, not with the good equipment, while somebody's nice and comfortable in the excavator or whatever kind of equipment, skid steer, bulldozer, whatever it may be. He's outside in the mud, using a shovel, checking grades, all those types of things. So it's all the things that you don't want to do, but he comes in, and I think that's what a lot of the people think construction is only doing those things for your entire life. And it's not. And you get paid nothing to do it. So zero experience. He's doing those things, $25 an hour, which is almost the national average for a salary for any type of worker. So yeah. Doing that grunt work, you're already getting paid pretty well. Where did it go from there over the next like 13 years? How'd you end up rising through the ranks, and what type of projects were you working
on? So I started out in residential, custom homes, like really, really big custom homes. And just kind of, I jumped around a lot. I don't know. When I was younger, my dad always told me to like buckle down, find a good company and just stay there. And that's not what I did. And in my experience, like if I had advice for younger dudes, like that's great. If you find a really good company and you want to stay there, like do your thing. But I jumped around a lot and learned from a lot of different people, because there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Like a lot of guys do it different. So I jumped around from company to company. Really, this might sound selfish, but I put myself first in a lot of cases. Like I would go to work for a company and I'd kind of feel like, okay, I'm kind of hitting a lid here. Like I'm not going to learn much more. I'm not going to move up. So I'm going to take off and go to this company because they have a spot that I can grow in more. And I kind of just did that over the years. But for the first, I don't know, 8 years or so was just residential work. So, digging basements, digging footings, doing all the grading around the house and stuff. And I worked on some really cool projects. Some of them were right on the ocean. Me and my buddy actually did a house down in Big Sur for the owner of the White Sox. So that was kind of cool. Kind of meet a lot of cool people in the trades. That's one thing
sure.
that kind of people overlook is you get to meet some really cool people. So yeah, and then from there, I kind of worked my way up and just kind of learned one machine at a time and got better and better on each machine. That's another huge thing is guys. I think guys have this perception that they could just jump on a machine, they run it for a little bit and they're the best at it and they can move on to the next one, when in fact it takes a lot of time. And I feel like there's a lot of guys that aren't willing to put in that time to really get good at everything. Because at the end of the day, if you want to call yourself an operator, you need to jump on everything and you need to use it to do whatever that job is, right? You need to be able to run everything. So after,
and let me just step in right there, because number one, it's just like anything else. It's like practice. Like it's just like a sport.
Right.
And I think people bastardize or patronize the excavation trade and the grading trade and the dirt moving trade because they just think that it's big rigs. It's not, there's no precision, there's no finesse, there's no artwork. And it's like, well, actually try, like a carpenter can do certain things with their hands and it's hyper focused and it's all like within your control. But now try to do that and be precise, making a grade over a certain distance and doing that with a piece of equipment that's 3 times the size of you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't feel what you're doing. You can't feel physically with your own hands the change that you're making. Right. And there's a huge effect. If a grade's fucked up, you're going to know when something goes wrong with the foundation or the underground rough or something doesn't line up or it doesn't drain properly. So there's a tremendous amount of precision. It's just different. But to your point, in order to know what those things are, like I know guys that can pick up a dime with certain pieces of equipment.
Right.
And it didn't come overnight. It's because they've done it for decades, literally decades.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time and a lot of feel. I mean, you gotta have a bubble in your butt. I mean, you operate a machine with your ass. Your ass is going to tell you if you're leaning to the left or to the right, or if it's bumpy or smooth, right? So it's kind of finding that bubble in your butt, and that comes with time too. And I see it. I've seen a lot over the last few years. Is there's just a lot of guys that, I think it comes naturally with operating, that dudes want to get in there and they just want to jump right to the top. They want to jump right into a blade. They want to jump right into the dozer. And it's like, fuck, man. Like,
yeah,
you need to learn how to run a shovel first,
right.
Like, let's start small here. Let's start small and work your way up. That's what I had to do. And I don't know, a lot of guys, I see it a lot. And now these guys, they just jump right to the top and they just miss out on so much shit in the middle, you know, and that's all building the foundation of your career.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if you don't, you might know how to use a calculator, but if you don't know how to add numbers on a piece of paper, then, you don't truly know what you're doing. And that's just a parallel, right? That's just relating it to something else. So as you progressed, eventually you went to Idaho. So what took you to Idaho?
So let's backtrack a little bit. So after, there came a point where I joined the union in California, the Local 3,
Okay.
Which is awesome. Local 3 is freaking awesome. Great benefits. I went to work for a company called Duran and Venables. My best friend, Stu Harney, and my cousin Chris Bartoli were working there. They're both foremen, and they were badgering me for like 2 or 3 years before I went to work there. Like, you need to come up with us, like, leave the small shit. It's time to do some man shit. So I finally did it. I got married, and then I was like, okay, I need to get serious and get benefits, and I need to move up and make some more money.
So they recruited you, like they showed up on job sites that you were working at, or you knew people, and they were like, "Hey, union, we want you." And finally, you did it once you got married.
Well, it was my cousin and my best friend. So it, like, literally, like, every time we're at a party or out at the bar or anywhere together, they would just give me shit. They're like, you need to get your shit together and come to work for us.
So, but when the union takes you on, do they take you on at entry level, or do they take you on as a full-fledged journeyman because of your experience?
They vouched for me to come on as a journeyman, which was awesome that I didn't have to do that apprenticeship program. I mean, I think it was cool back in the day, but nowadays I think it's just, I don't know. I in my experience, I wouldn't do the apprenticeship program. I would start at small companies and learn and get on as a journeyman. I don't know what the apprenticeship programs are for other trades, but for operating, like, learn the old school way and go to work for small companies and just work your way up to that. Just don't waste your time with that apprenticeship program. I think it's a waste of time. And I think a lot of the guys that are teaching that apprenticeship program are dudes that couldn't hack it in the field, and they just went to that school. And I don't know. I just talking to some of those apprentices when I got to the union, and the shit they were telling me was fucking outrageous. Like,
those who can do and those who can't teach. It's that old.
Yeah. I mean, they taught us that you can't load trucks with an excavator, that you can only load trucks with a fucking loader. I'm like, 90% of the time we load out trucks, you're sitting on top of a pile with an excavator. Like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. And then they make you build a pad. They make you build and cut a pad with a loader. Like, who the fuck does that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very fortunate that I got on as a journeyman. So I didn't have to deal with that stupid bullshit.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. And number one, unions look for people that they don't have to train, right? If there's somebody that is an experienced journeyman, they'd love to bring them on, grow the union, and just bring on the experience without the lift of bringing somebody up. So they do that, and they recruit, whether it's through people that they know, like you did, or sometimes they'll literally go to a non-union job site and walk right up to people and say, "Hey, come join the union." I've had multiple people on this podcast that's happened to. And what's funny, because I know you're not in the union now and you live in Idaho, and I just realized this, but every single person that I've had on this podcast that was in the union left. So I'm curious, what came first, you leaving the union or going to Idaho, or were they one and the same thing?
It was kind of the same thing, honestly. So I lived out in the middle of nowhere in California, and we were commuting to the Bay Area, San Jose, Oakland, like South San Francisco to work. That's like 90% of our jobs were up there. So my commute was 2.5 hours there and 3 hours back home sitting in traffic. And I would get to my buddy Stu's house or my cousin's house, whichever one I was working for at the time, 3 or 4 in the morning, and jump in the truck with them and go up there. And after doing that for a couple of years, there was a day that me and Stu were sitting in the truck in traffic, and I literally told him, like, dude, this is no way to live. Like, this is such a miserable fucking existence, sitting in traffic every day. Like, I'm leaving. I'm getting the fuck out of here. So,
and what year was this again?
2020, I think. 2020. Time's a blur to me, so I apologize.
When the world went to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, it was around 2020. So I went home, and me and my wife, our family had already moved here, and we were actually talking about moving here like 3 or 4 years prior. But we had really good jobs, so we were like, "Fuck, let's just make some money, and we'll look at that another time." And I remember I went home and I told my wife, I'm like, "We're out of here. Fuck this place. I can't live like this anymore." And actually, I went to work the next day and I told Stu, I'm like, "Dude, we're out of here. We're putting the house on the market. We're leaving." And he was like, "Okay." And like a week later, he bought a house, and he ended up moving here quicker than I did. He got here like 6 months, and he didn't even want to go originally.
Right.
I think he was like, "Okay, well, well, his brother had moved here too, so there was like a little more motivation for him to move. But at first, he was like, "I'm vested in the union. I've been here for X amount of years. I can't walk away from it." And then I think us like putting the house on the market, he was like, "Okay, fuck this, let's go."
Oh, fuck, I guess that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it's funny because that's part of what pushed my wife and I to Florida, and I'm about to move to Texas, but I was living in Boston and I've lived in New York, New Jersey, Orange County, down in Southern California.
Nice.
My wife's from Philly, and it's just like, fuck, man, like I can't spend 4 hours a day commuting. Like it's just not my thing. And what I love about everybody that I've had on the podcast, and one of the things that I try to preach about the industry, we can talk about compensation and opportunity all day, but one of the best things that you get from the industry is a freedom to be employed and to be able to put food on the table no matter where you go, because you got a skill set that translates, right? Excavation is needed in every single market, right? Yes. Especially for a growing one like Idaho, because there's so many people that are going over to Idaho and maybe even ruining it. But right.
There's a little bit going on.
Yeah. So, I love that it's just another example of somebody that was able to say, you know what, need a change in my life, picking up my tools and my skill set, and I'm going elsewhere. And what did that look like for you? So how did you end up finding work when you got to Idaho? Hold on. Can I ask you before we go to Idaho, before I forget, what's the union pay in Local 3 like?
When I was there, I think I was making 52 or 53 an hour. And like I said, the benefits were insane. Like
on top of it's probably another 40, 45 bucks or something.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. It's like I was covered 100% for everything. My wife, my kids, like just I don't know. The benefits here suck. So I miss the benefits. But I mean, you go to the doctor and it's like fucking $4. It's like holy shit.
Yeah.
Insane. My wife.
You don't need them. You don't need them as much as you needed them in San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, before I left, I started having some health problems from COVID, some heart issues and stuff. And so I was going to the cardiologist and stuff, and it was like fucking $50. It was crazy. But now, like with the benefits that the companies offer here, it's like almost not even worth having it, really. So that is the one plus side of the union, like great benefits and great pay. It's awesome. It really is good.
Yeah, I mean that's a base pay of $104,000 a year plus benefits. On top of that, the whole package is probably worth $170, $180, right? 170,000, 180,000. So you can't beat that. I mean, you can beat it if you go out on your own. Or do something else. So, were you scared going to Idaho looking for work? How'd you end up finding work when you got to Idaho?
So before I was scared shitless coming here. I mean, it's pretty gnarly going somewhere where you don't know anybody. But I don't know, maybe like 6 months before we came up here, I started just getting on Instagram. And because I actually had never been here before, our family lives up in Sandpoint, which is about 6 or 7 hours north, like up in the Panhandle. So I'd actually never even been to Boise before we moved here. Never seen it, never touched the ground here. So I jumped on Instagram and I kind of just started surfing through there looking for companies. And I found this truck driver. He's a transport guy. His handle's Justin208. Go check him out. He's got a great page. He like takes pictures of equipment all over the valley and just posts it and says like the company that owns the equipment and the job site and everything. So I started surfing his page, and he basically laid out every excavation company in the valley. So I just started going one after another and looking through them, and I was like, shit, okay, like looking at their websites, and I found the first company I found was Laser Land Leveling. They're a mass grading company. They basically do the biggest jobs in the state. So I went and interviewed with them, got hired on. I was only there for a couple weeks because it was just not my kind of people. And my buddy was working for a company called Central Paving. So I called him, was like, hey dude, this is not the place I want to work. So I jumped on with them the next week. And it was cool. It's a smaller company. They do bigger civil stuff, but just with less guys. Like they're smaller crews, which I liked. And yeah, we're doing roundabouts and did a bunch of work at the Boise airport, building new hangars and extending the the runway and this and that. So yeah, it was pretty cool. I say once I got to work and like started meeting people, I don't know, it's felt like home ever since. And it was actually, that was working. It's crazy how meeting people at work and getting to know people through that, it'll make it the place feel like home super quick.
So at this point, you're 29, 30 years old. Were you worried about a pay cut? I mean, I'm sure going from the Bay Area to Idaho, there was a pay cut involved. What did that pay cut look like? And where'd you take it from there? Did you live there until you decided to start your own company?
The pay cut was insane. Like it hurt like really bad. It put a lot of stress on us. I basically went from making like 52 to 53 to 20. I think Central Paving hired me on at 24 an hour, which is terrible. And what people don't understand is like this Treasure Valley it's growing really fast, and it's actually really expensive to live here. So the pay scale is
hasn't caught up.
No, it's not caught up at all. So I was struggling. And like I said, me and my wife were making pretty good money back home in California. So we had, nice new cars and boat and just, shit that we were spending money on. And when we got here, we had to get rid of everything. Like that hurt. That like hurt pretty bad.
How was that on the relationship? Was she ride or die? She was all good with it? Didn't matter?
Yeah, my wife's a ride or die. She's in it to win it. My wife's a stud. But no, it definitely put stress on it just because I was stressed out, Yeah, like I kind of dealt with a little depression there for a while and like was really not doing good. Plus my health was not good at that time either. So I was dealing with that. It was the first couple of years were pretty rough. But that was ultimately my motivation to start doing my own thing and start making extra money. Now we're fine. Now things are cool,
So it wasn't enough at the time. And this was only 4 years ago, right? So where'd you go? I mean, did you start bouncing to other companies to try and get a couple more dollars an hour here or there? Were you doing side work? Or did you just let it bubble up and keep it bottled up until it exploded about a year ago and you said, fuck this, I'm starting my own company?
A kind of a little bit of both, really. I called up a company here in the Valley, Granite Excavation. They're really well known, awesome people. They had followed me on social media already, and they were always watching my stories. So I kind of feel like they had an insight to my day because I don't post as much now, but at that time, like I don't know, I was probably a little bit too much on Instagram. Like people knew what I was doing every day, like every hour.
That's the downside of posting, right? Like.
Right.
I'll be doing something sometime and I'll be like, oh shit, I can't post this because if so-and-so sees it.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing cool shit though. So I'm like, man, I want people to see what I'm doing. Like way cool stuff.
Sure.
Like really big job. So like I was giving the insight, out there running a blade, pull out my phone and I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. So I told my buddy Stu, I'm like, dude, we got to get the fuck out of here and make some more money. So I called up Granite and Dusty Hibbard was like, dude, meet me at the bar tonight after work. And so I walked in the bar and we had a beer and we shot the shit about work. And he was like, yeah, I'll hire you guys on, like come into the office. And so we put in our 2 weeks and then went to the office. And then he came in and we kind of negotiated pay a little bit. And he's like, all right, I'll give you guys what you want. And we both got a pay raise. I got up to 28 or 29 an hour, and Stu I think got 30 or 31 an hour. So it was a nice pay raise. Sometimes I kind of feel like there wasn't a ton of negotiating just because, like I said, like those dudes were seeing what we were doing every day. And that's the hard part about excavation is guys, you hire guys on and they come out to the job and they tell you that they could run everything. And then I always put them through the gauntlet. Like, okay, blade, go jump on the blade for a couple hours and see what you can do. You run dozer, go jump on there and push that out. And 90% of the time they can't do any of it. So
right. So it's funny the way that you said that though, because I think that especially with the way things are going and the way the world is and the demand out there, it's like a live resume, like creating that perception and a personal brand really is what it is in construction.
Yep.
Will pay dividends, right? And whether it's for you to go to another company and be seen by another company. I have companies reaching out to me all the time that are like, dude, come do this for us because of just the platform that I've built.
Yep.
It's a new way to be seen, right? And I think if anything, people have this perception about blue collar work and the man kind of having like their foot pressed down on somebody. Not really, not anymore. Not if you're out there creating a personal brand, because people can see you, and
Yeah.
there's a need out there. So
Yeah, that was kind of my goal too, was just to kind of get my name out there. And like you said, people reaching out to you, dude, I've gotten that so many times. Like I've had guys in other states reach out and ask me to come work for them. You know, it's pretty awesome. The connections you can make on
yeah,
social media are pretty cool. And like, you know, make yourself the brand, you know, just be
yeah.
yourself, put yourself out there, let people know what you can do. And social media honestly has changed my life in so many ways. And we could go down that road if you want, but if you trace it, social media has completely changed my life. It's incredible.
So I want to talk about that, but I just want to ask you about the depression. Like, did it just get to a point where you couldn't take it anymore? I mean, were you dealing with the depression? Did you have some things that you had to work on? What would you say to somebody that's in that situation where they're not making enough money, or they had to take a huge pay cut to make a move for their family, or something like that? Like, how'd you end up dealing with that?
I mean, I dealt with it by just pursuing ways to make more money. Like when people tell you that money can't buy happiness, that's a load of fucking shit. Like money makes life better. It does.
Yeah,
Like sure, there's people that are super rich and are depressed. Like I get it, but I don't know. Money's made my life a lot better. Like I don't know. That's an answer to a lot of problems nowadays, especially when we live in a financially driven world, you know. But
sure.
I mean, the way my wife's my rock, you know. I mean, she's always there for me, and like she knew I was struggling, you know. And I'm not the best person to be around when anxiety is flaming up and you know depression's looming. Like I'm pretty rough, I'm pretty cold.
Mm.
But really, just having my wife there. I mean, she's my rock, and my kids. We have 4 kids too, you know. So you know, having them, I just have to remind myself every day that you know I'm not working for myself. You know, I'm working for my family, and you know, I'm trying
Sure.
to provide a better life for them. That's the most important thing to me is creating a better life for them. So I think I just dealing with that shit. You know, I just had to remind myself why I'm doing it and you know what I'm doing it for. And ultimately, that going through those struggles was the motivation to start doing my own thing, you know, start an excavation company and start the media company, ultimately to make more money, you know?
Yeah, listen, I think there's a couple things there. Number one, you always got to remember your purpose. You got to remember why you're doing it. And number two, it doesn't matter where you are, what you've been through, or where you're at. If you just start taking positive action in the right direction, that's all that matters. And that's what defines who you are. And if you try to do that every day, you're going to wind up in a good spot. I think social media has a bad rap, right? I think actually, when I was at my worst, social media only helped me pull out of that because of the things that I got exposed to. And then when I started making my own platform, the way that I was expressing myself and the way people were seeing me. And actually, what's funny is I got a promotion at my company, and I've been toying with the idea of doing something myself entrepreneurially, but I'm getting taken care of very well by my company.
Mm.
And the reason that I got it actually was because somebody pulled up my social media. We work at a 12, $13 billion company. Somebody pulled up my social media in a boardroom and they said, he works for us. I follow him.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And,
Crazy.
I now my career is on a totally different trajectory, that I
Yep.
didn't even know was there. Right. So tell me about social media and, the ride that's been, what kind of an impact that's had on you as a guy in construction.
Really just making connections with people. I started posting like full time, I don't know, maybe a few years ago. And just getting that exposure. I mean, I grew my page from like 4,000 to 25,000, I think I'm at now in the course of a few years. And, just making my own brand and putting myself out there has brought about a ton of connections. And a lot of those connections led making more money, and getting new clients and having people reach out to me. Actually, like my first client was a company called Turner Mining Group. And the crazy thing about Turner Mining Group is they're the reason why I started doing content. Like they inspired me to make cool content, because that was BuildWit's first customer. That's like he started with that company, and they were like making really cool content, like the first people to do it. And so it's crazy how it came full circle, and they hit me up to create content for them. And that's when I like told my wife, I'm like, fuck, this is like a good side hustle. I could actually really do this. Here's this huge like nationwide company reaching out for me to do their content. So I started pushing even harder on social media, creating more connections, and ended up Spires Construction, the dudes I was telling you about, I help out with the estimating. They ended up hitting me up shortly after that. And then I got another guy too, another entrepreneur here in the Valley that I do his stuff for every week. And man, if you're just active on it and you're putting out a good message and being a good person, like good things will come from it. Like I promise you, it's awesome.
Listen, I always say, and this is the analogy that I have, and maybe I got to come up with a new one because I don't know if it's getting old, but like when you shine that light, number one, darkness goes away, depression and anxiety goes away. Number two, you can see opportunities. And number three, people see you, right? If you're shining a light where everybody else is in the dark, people can see you. Maybe that's a promotion. Maybe that's a new company. Maybe that's a new client, whatever that may be, just new opportunity is going to find you. And I think that's awesome, from where you were, and you were at what sounds like a tough time, and maybe even something you define as a rock bottom, that social media and shining that light out there so everybody could see it was a way for you to come up to where you're at now as a full-fledged entrepreneur. So what was that jump like? So it was a year ago and you were like, you know what, I can do better than all these idiots on my own. Was it an experience thing? Did an event happen that kind of pushed you in that direction? And how afraid were you when that happened?
Well, I mean, everything kind of, again, started from social media. I mean, if you trace it back from the beginning, like I went to work for Granite through social media. I met my business partner there. And I feel like sometimes, like, man, if I didn't post all that stuff and I didn't go to work there and like I didn't know these guys through social media, where would I be at now? But really, for me, it was, like I said, I was making more money than it was at Central, but it's just never really good enough. I just financially driven. I wanted to make more money, and I don't know. I guess I'm at a point in my career where I want to build something that's mine. Like I've spent my whole career building everybody else's dreams. Like I want to build my own dreams. And I met my business partner Conrad, and I mean that dude's awesome. Like I had a vision of a smaller excavation company, just kind of doing small jobs, making a little bit of money here and there, and like enough to live comfortably. And that dude's imagination and his vision is insane. Like he literally took my vision and like 10x'd it. I didn't even know much about the veteran owned stuff and all that. And he's literally like taking us down a path to do really well. So, but yeah, I think for the most part, I want to build my own dreams. That's what's important to me, and to leave a legacy, something for my kids, something for my kids' kids, I mean, ultimately, like the ultimate goal is to build generational wealth here, something for our family down the road. I mean, like I said, I have 4 kids, so that's a lot of mouths to feed. And, hopefully they can come work for the company someday too, hopefully their kids can work for it. Hopefully it'll make a lasting impact on for all of us,
Amen to everything you just said. I have no rebuttal or anything to add. I think that's what we all want. And I don't think that people understand, the opportunity there. And for somebody that started out in their career, and first of all, they were in the Army, and then they went and they were digging literally holes with their hands, and they're doing the grunt work. And here they are, in their mid 30s, father of 4, has a skill set that he can go start not only one business, but 3 businesses. And it's all at the core of that is the skill that you have in excavation and land development, right? So, and then you use other tools like media and social media to enhance the opportunities that can come your way. So ultimately, it's not necessarily about, the dollar and making $10 more an hour working for this company or that company. You have a bigger purpose to serve, and you're doing it. And I think that's and ultimately to build a legacy. So I think that's what we're all after, or that's what we all should be after. And if more people were after that, we'd probably be in a better society. But we're coming up on an hour here, so I want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything that you were hoping that you'd get to say, or any advice out there that you would give to anybody considering the industry, or maybe that's already in the industry?
Yeah, I think, the advice I'd give is, from start to finish is, for one, be a good person. Don't burn bridges. If you burn bridges, that shit will bite you in the fucking ass. And, like I said earlier, just shut up and listen, learn, watch, like get in with good people that want to help you, and stick with those people. Like I said earlier, I learned from some of the best to do it. And I feel so lucky. I think about those guys every single day. Every day I think about them. And, I'm here now because of them, so find good people, get in with them and work your ass off. And, if you get to a point where you're battling with depression, anxiety, and shit's not going your way, like you just need to work harder. That's all it is. You just need to work harder and make good connections. I mean, I don't really know what else to say on top of that. Like, really, ultimately, it comes down to just being a good person. Like, don't be a dirtbag.
People know who the dirtbags are pretty quick, and
Yeah.
I think there's so many good people in the construction industry, and it's an industry that it's almost like I equate the East Coast to the West Coast. In Boston and New York, the people are not nice, but they're kind, right? They'll change a tire, but they'll say you're a fucking idiot that can't change his own tire, right?
Yeah.
Whereas people on the West Coast in California will be like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that your tire's flat. Like, good luck with that. And they're really nice, but they're not kind, and they're not going to help you change the tire, right? The construction industry is kind of the same way, but it's all merit-based, right? If you're hardworking, if you show up on time, if you're reliable, if you ask questions, if you're worth mentoring, and you create that perception around you, then people will show you the best versions of themselves, and they'll always give that to you, right? It's a two-way street. So it's unique in that, in a world where I think that's going away and more people are nice than kind. I think it's more that than anything else. So yeah, don't burn bridges, and you develop the strongest relationships by delivering that value exactly as you described. So Cody, where can people find you, and what should they be on the lookout for with your platform?
You can find me on Instagram at cody.j.hansen. And if you like watching heavy equipment content and stuff like that, go and give me a follow. So once our business is really cranking and we got some guys in the field, that page is going to get really cranking too. So you could find that at a Waihe Civil Corp. So go ahead and check them out. We'll be out there doing it.
Yeah, and I think for all you young people that want to be influencers out there, what you're not realizing is that the construction industry is probably the best way to do it. And when you talk about depth in your following and how that can be monetized, it's the best way for companies that want to advertise, tool companies, equipment companies, construction companies. If you're following somebody like a Cody or like a me, then you're interested in that content. So when they pay for us to advertise, and I'm not getting paid to advertise anything, but I know other trade influencers that get paid a lot of money to advertise, like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. It's because they know that anybody that sees their content is interested. So it's a better bang for their buck for their marketing strategy, right? It's better than advertising on TV because it's pointed to a focus group already. It's already picked out for them.
Yeah, no, it works. It's huge. I've had a ton of people reach out to me and tell me that they're getting an excavation because of my page, which is huge. It's awesome.
That's amazing. So go follow Cody. Again, you can follow me, all major platforms at The Construction Mentor. And Cody, I appreciate you coming on, and everybody else. We'll catch you next time.
Sweet. Thank you.